God, I have a few questions. What would you ask? Imagine if you could be the one walking on the seashore with Jesus. And maybe you're unsure about it, but you're thinking like everybody's saying this person is the Son of God. He's performed miracles. He's raised the dead. He's cured the blind. I mean, you were there when he fed thousands of people. Imagine if you could be one of those people walking on the seashore with him. What would you ask? Would you ask about money? How generous am I supposed to be? Should I give all my money away? Is it okay for the church to have money and have unbelievable art and real estate? Is that okay? Or should the church sell everything and take care of the needy? Would you ask on a personal level, should I do that? Should I just stop eating bacon-wrapped scallops? Should I just eat ramen noodles for every meal and give it all away? Is it okay for me to have this house and this car? Is it okay for me to take these vacations? What should I do with my career? What would you ask? Would you ask personal questions? Would you ask about your kids and their decisions around school and college and work and relationships and sporting events, and what should they be involved in? What's good for the family? What would you ask? What would you ask? Would you ask about science and religion and how sometimes they seem to be at war with each other? Would you ask about, can evolution exist? But what about all the Bible stories? Are they true? Are they remotely true? If there are flaws or faults in there or cracks in there, can I believe anything? What would you ask? What would you ask? Would you ask about bad things happening to good people? Would you ask about hell? Does it exist or not? And how could it? How can you justify that? And if it exists, is it empty or is it crowded? What would you ask? Would you ask, are you supposed to forgive everybody? At what point does patience run out? At what point am I supposed to be tough? At what point am I supposed to say no, 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 no? What does forgiveness really look like? What does it really feel like? What would you ask? Would you ask about your prayers? God doesn't seem to answer all my prayers. I wish he'd answer at least the most important ones. Would you ask about all roads? Do all roads really lead up the mountain? Maybe you've heard it described. Religion is like blind men touching an elephant, and one has the tail, and one has the trunk, and one has one of the tusks, and one's holding onto one of the ears, and one's holding onto one of the legs, and they're all describing the same thing, but just from a little bit different perspective. Would you ask if that's real? Would you ask, do I need all these rules? Would you ask, is it arrogant or obnoxious to claim that your way, your religion is the right one? What would you ask? I'm Jonathan Panning, and I had an amazing, amazing gift of being able to spend hundreds of hours with a monk. I didn't go out of my way to meet a monk. I wasn't trying to meet a monk. I had a lot of questions for that monk. The monk was absolutely brilliant and passionate, and he loved to discuss these questions. He loved entertaining questions. He loved wrestling with the questions. And he allowed them. He facilitated it. He often came back with his own questions. What would you ask? God, I have a few questions.